We got another one today. This is about some VR goggles or VR glasses. The title of this one today is "I should have tried these earlier, Bigscreen VR." So we're gonna get into this one. We're gonna see what's up. Oh, sophisticated. This looks real sophisticated.
I spent over $7,000 Australian on this triple ultra-wide OLED setup for my racing sim.
Oh, that's nice.
We're gonna find out if that was all a waste. I've read so much about sim racing in VR that I just have to give this a shot. Many people saying that this is the ultimate way to get the most immersive driving experience. Well, this is the Bigscreen Beyond. It is one of the more premium VR headsets out there at about $1,000 US, but it is definitely one of the more interesting. I mean, just look at it. That is everything. That is the entire VR headset.
It's small.
Right there. I mean, just absolutely tiny. So yeah, Bigscreen saw my initial racing sim video. They saw that, I mentioned that I wanted to try virtual reality. So yeah, they sent this over, said have a play and let us
that's
know what
real
you think.
small.
I also bought the Quest 3 though as a bit of a comparison. I'm gonna have to push this steering wheel back a little bit. But yeah, I'm glad I did. This is about half the price at $500. But man, take a look at this size difference. I mean, it is just a completely different game.
That's what I'm used to.
The Quest 3 is by no means a super heavy or really bulky VR headset, but the Bigscreen Beyond is like a quarter of the weight and like half the size. I mean, the weight and size difference is just immense. It also comes with a custom 3D printed face cushion. Part of the order process is sending them a face scan, which you can do with an iPhone, and this is the result. Wow. It's a soft, plushy material with magnets. It just clips onto the headset, and it is a perfect fit. One of the drawbacks though of this thing being so small is that there aren't any sensors on the front for head-mounted tracking. So of course you need to track your head in VR. You will need an external source to do that, which is a Steam VR base station. Apparently, a lot of people already have these. If you're upgrading from an HTC Vive or a Valve Index, for example, you probably have a couple of these laying around. Otherwise, you'll need to buy at least one. It also doesn't have any video pass-through like the Quest 3, which is helpful when transitioning between games and desktop use. I found myself removing and putting back on the big screen headset a lot more frequently when setting things up, but it is less of an issue because the thing is just so small. But yeah, after going through a quick setup and dialing things in, this was my first impression.
Oh my god. I can see the glare changing in the sun as I tilt my head. That is insane. I can see the mirrors super clear. Dude, I can hang my hang my head. Dude, this is insane. I feel like I could just sit here and just explore this cabin. I feel like this is a game in itself. This is an entire game right here. I could just swap between all the different cars.
They're getting way too detailed with this technology.
Dude, oh my god. My brain is doing this thing where it actually thinks I'm moving. Oh,
how do you feel that? Your brain doing something you think you're moving, but you're not? How do you feel that?
I could probably hop out of the car if I really
How do you notice that?
You know what? Let me see how much movement I actually have here. I can hop out of the car. The only problem is that when I turn the headset away from the base station, it kind of cuts out a little bit.
Yo, he hopped out of the car. That's crazy.
On the track. I gotta be careful not to trip over anything. This is actually crazy. Dude,
what?
So I spent a few days just doing this, catching up on a bunch of other work on the side, but also just playing a bunch of Assetto Corsa in VR. And yeah, it was an absolute blast. It wasn't until I swapped to the Quest 3 though that the strengths and weaknesses of these two headsets became a lot more obvious. The lenses on the Quest 3, for example, are just better. Whereas the Quest has an adjustable IPD, which is basically the distance between your pupils, the Bigscreen has a fixed IPD based on your eye scan which you provide in your order. Mine seems pretty spot on, it's clear in the center, but for me I notice a lot more haloing and softness around the edges of those lenses. Once I was truly locked into a game though, I can't say it bothered me that much, but definitely something that I noticed when looking around menus or on a virtual desktop. The lenses on the Quest 3 just feel nicer. The displays though are wildly different. Of course, the big screen is going to be better at double the cost, but it does truly feel like I'm playing a different game between these two headsets. The big screen uses 1-inch OLED panels at 2560 by 2560 per eye, and yeah, they're just insane. So much detail, so much contrast. I mean, you saw my first impressions. When you're sitting in the cabin of a high-res car model, you have to stop yourself from like reaching out and pressing buttons because that's how convincing it feels. But before we get sucked into the details too much, let's back up a bit because racing in VR is actually pretty insane. Like, if anyone wants to buy my two other side monitors that I've got sitting over there, let me know because I will no longer be needing them. Like, yeah, racing in VR is that good. Things like turn-in and braking points, they just feel so much more real and intuitive in virtual reality, in that 3D space where you can feel things out just like way more. For example, something that I noticed quite a lot is that if I was trying a new car or a new track and I kind of had to learn the braking points, it was just so much harder on a screen because you're pretty much just relying on 2D like signs and stuff like that. Whereas in that 3D space, in that virtual reality, you can feel those things out way more, and it's like a little bit easier to feel that stuff. Also with VR, you know how like when you're on a roller coaster and you feel that drop in your stomach after like a steep drop or something like that, you kind of get that with virtual reality as well. I felt it many times, especially like if I was just hopping onto the rig for the first couple of times. Yeah, you legitimately get like those drops in your stomach. It sounds completely far-fetched because of course the rig is not moving or accelerating at all, but yeah, elevation changes, tight cornering, your brain just kind of senses that stuff at a different level compared to a single or triple screen setup. It is also just like way more compact. I mean, take a look at that. It looks amazing. I know the triple screens were like super overkill, they looked like super impressive and everything, but dude, even in this warehouse, they were taking up so much space. I can't even imagine what a triple screen setup would be like at home. So yeah, triple screens were definitely nice, but I think I like this a lot more, especially with that big screen up front. You know, people can see what your POV is, and then you can do all the actual driving on the headsets. The affordability as well, I just need to keep mentioning it. Like the fact that this is $1,000, you know, compared to what I spent on triple screens, yeah, that is actually.
I feel like that's worth it.
Are there any
that's
drawbacks?
Worth it.
You know, anything I prefer about
$1,000?
I mean, I guess you can play for longer without messing up your hair or having red marks on your face from the cushion, or maybe if you're doing like, you know, a 6 to 8 hour driving sesh, you know, monitors would be more comfortable in that regard. And I guess you can share the experience with other people a bit easier too. But at the end of the day, this is a simulator. You know, the point for me is to simulate driving and racing to be as real as possible. I'm not doing massive, like 6 hour plus racing sessions. I'm hopping on this for an hour or two max, and that's pretty much it. And I'm also not going to say that, you know, VR will give you faster lap times or anything like that. Most sim racers that I've seen seem to prefer the simplicity and comfort of a monitor. But as a casual myself who's hopping into this thing like for an hour or two at a time, I'm finding VR significantly more immersive and a lot more fun. Now, at $500, we have to talk about the Quest 3 because the value proposition here is actually insane, especially if you want to do like mixed reality stuff or like, you know, play games standalone completely off the headset. This thing has a battery and a built-in GPU, which is kind of nuts. For sim racing and ultra high detailed stuff, yeah, the big screen is a couple steps above because of those OLED displays primarily and the more compact design, but the FOV is actually slightly better on the Quest 3 and you still definitely get a convincing and immersive driving experience. The only thing I didn't really like about the Quest 3 was running it at 120 Hz, which, you know, sounds a bit weird. Why would running it at the fastest option be kind of the worst? It's because of the compression, you know, not like the big screen VR, which uses a display port straight from your GPU. The Quest 3 uses a link cable over USB 3. That connection has like a 3 gigabits per second limit or something like that, and it's just really not enough for a 120 Hz output. I found running up to 90 Hz was pretty much the sweet spot for this thing, but yeah, 120, although the smoothness was extremely impressive, the compression was just not it, at least in Assetto Corsa. The Bigscreen Beyond though is like super impressive though. I mean, this form factor is like what, 5 years ahead of everything else? It is super compact. I mean, how is this a VR headset? It still completely blows my mind. Those OLED displays that are packed in there as well, just super high detailed and very, very impressive. I actually found myself using the lower res 90Hz mode on this thing for that extra smoothness most of the time, and I still felt like there was enough detail in game. After using this thing for a couple of weeks though, I did notice a couple of drawbacks. Most important probably is the glare that you can see on both lenses. It's like a glary ring on the bottom of both lenses as you're wearing it. Yeah, it sounds extremely weird, like how do you get glare on a VR headset? But it's there. It's like a faint kind of like a white hazy ring on the bottom of both lenses. To be honest, you do kind of forget about it, and like if you're on a racing sim and you're driving on a bright track, it is something that you do definitely forget about. But yeah, if you're looking at menus and kind of, you know, switching between tracks and stuff like that, then yeah, it is something that is pretty annoying and to be honest, just shouldn't be there. The plastic on the front as well looks amazing. It has like this kind of smoked semi-transparent look out of the box, but it is also a dust magnet, and when you do give it a wipe with the included microfiber, it does scratch pretty easily. My unit unfortunately looks just painfully scuffed after a couple of weeks. The 3D printed cushion as well does get kind of messy and gross and will need regular cleaning. The FOV is also not amazing on this thing at just 102 degrees, and that seems to be like the main complaint that a lot of people have about the Bigscreen Beyond, especially those looking to get into sim racing. Personally, you know, as someone who has not tried like super wide FOV virtual reality headsets, it's not something that really bothered me if I'm being honest. You do get like a bit of that like faint black bar kind of in your peripheral vision. It does kind of simulate or feel like you're wearing an actual helmet or an actual pair of goggles. But yeah, there's no way around it. A bigger FOV would be better. Having said all that though, I still think that this is one of the best PC gaming experiences that you can get today. But yeah, VR on the racing sim, I don't think I can go back to a screen setup. Even 45-inch OLEDs completely surrounding me. Yeah, this tiny VR headset. That
explains why you're giving away your screens or you're selling your screens.
Even if you have like $500, right? If you've got $500 for a gaming monitor, I struggle to think what gaming monitor could beat a Quest 3 at that same price. I mean, the immersion as well that you can get out of this is pretty phenomenal.
Wow. 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 That right there, that was something. That's something, because I feel like pretty soon, once we start getting like more technology with VR, just like AI, VR is gonna be like blowing up. VR is gonna be popular. Everybody's gonna want to do VR pretty soon. But thank you again. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below on what you think about this Bigscreen VR headset. Peace.